Imagine a place sitting right in the middle of one of the richest cities in America. Luxury apartments, expensive restaurants, million-dollar buildings, exotic sports cars, and then, just a few streets away, an entirely different world. A world many locals refuse to enter. Please subscribe to this channel. A world filled with thousands of people fighting battles most of society never sees. A world that has become one of the most controversial places in the United States. Today, we are stepping inside a neighborhood we'll call The Zone. A place located in the center of Los Angeles that has become known across America for homelessness, addiction, poverty, mental illness, and survival. More than 10,000 people pass through or live within this area. Some arrived after losing jobs, some after losing family support, some after struggling with addiction, and some after spending years inside prison walls. No matter how they got here, many describe the same feeling. Once you arrive, getting out becomes incredibly difficult. But before we continue, if you love documentaries that take you inside places most people never get to see, click the subscribe button. It really helps me a lot, because what we're about to witness feels less like a neighborhood and more like an entirely different universe. So what actually happens inside one of America's most infamous streets? Scene 1. Entering the zone. The closer we got, the more the atmosphere changed. The skyscrapers were still visible. The wealthy districts were still nearby. Yet everything felt different. The energy, the sounds, the tension. Even people who had lived in Los Angeles for years warned us, be careful. Don't stay too long. Watch your surroundings. Click on the subscription button to subscribe. It really helps the channel. One local guide admitted something surprising. Despite living in Los Angeles for years, he had never spent meaningful time here himself. That alone told me something. When locals avoid a place this strongly, there's usually a reason. As we stepped onto the first block, it immediately felt like entering a community operating under its own unwritten rules. People watched every movement, every camera, every conversation. Trust wasn't automatic. Respect had to be earned. And mistakes could create problems quickly. If aliens landed on Earth and accidentally walked into this neighborhood first, they'd probably send an emergency message back home saying, "Attention, humans appear to have created two completely different realities inside the same city." Honestly, that wouldn't be far from the truth, because within minutes, we realized filming here wasn't going to be simple. Some people welcomed conversation. Others wanted absolutely nothing to do with us, and tensions could rise without warning. So how do you gain access to a place where outsiders are often viewed with suspicion? Standing in the middle of this neighborhood, it was easy to focus on the tents, the shopping carts, the trash, the visible poverty. But the longer we stayed, the more I realized something important. Nobody grows up dreaming about sleeping on a sidewalk. Nobody plans their future around surviving inside a tent. Every person here had a story, a decision, a mistake, a tragedy, a setback, something that brought them to this place. And the deeper we went, the more complicated those stories became. Because what we were looking at wasn't just homelessness. It was thousands of different life stories colliding in the same few streets. And one conversation was about to prove exactly that. How does someone end up spending years living inside a tent? One thing became obvious almost immediately. Relationships matter here. People protect their space. People protect their community, and people are cautious about strangers, especially strangers carrying cameras. After several difficult interactions, we learned something important. The fastest way to build trust wasn't fancy equipment. It wasn't credentials. It wasn't social media. It was simple respect, listening, talking, and occasionally compensating people for their time. Eventually, someone agreed to guide us through the area, not as an official tour guide, more like a local navigator, someone who understood the streets, someone who understood the people, someone who knew where we could go and where we probably shouldn't. As we walked deeper inside, the scale of the situation became impossible to ignore. Tents stretched along sidewalks. Shopping carts overflowed with belongings. Makeshift shelters filled nearly every available space. For many residents, everything they owned existed within a few square feet. Their home, their clothing, their paperwork, their memories, their entire lives, all concentrated inside temporary shelters. And that's when we met someone whose story perfectly demonstrated how quickly life can change. Could losing a job really be enough to place someone here? The man explained that everything began with a financial setback. Work disappeared. Income disappeared. Then housing disappeared. One problem triggered another. And another. Please subscribe. And another. Before long, he found himself living on the streets. His story wasn't unique. In fact, many residents described similar patterns: job loss, medical issues, addiction struggles, family breakdowns, housing costs, legal problems. Each path looked different, but many roads seemed to lead to the same destination. What shocked me most wasn't simply becoming homeless. It was how difficult escaping homelessness appeared to be. Several people described losing identification documents. Without identification, applying for assistance becomes harder. Finding work becomes harder. Securing housing becomes harder. Everything becomes harder. Then there were periodic street cleanups. When officials arrived, people often had limited time to move their belongings. If important paperwork disappeared during the process, the cycle started all over again. The more we listened, the clearer one reality became. Many people weren't trapped by a single problem. They were trapped by dozens of problems happening simultaneously. And if surviving outside is already difficult, what does daily life inside one of these tents actually look like? Eventually, someone invited us inside their shelter. Please subscribe and share. The structure itself was simple, small, crowded, temporary. Yet despite its appearance, this tent represented something incredibly important: safety, privacy, personal space, even if limited. Because once someone loses housing, everything becomes more difficult. Without an address, finding work becomes harder. Receiving benefits becomes harder. Keeping documents becomes harder. Opening opportunities becomes harder. Every obstacle creates another obstacle. And after enough obstacles, many people stop believing escape is possible. That's what made this neighborhood feel so unique. It wasn't simply a location. It was an ecosystem, a cycle, a system that many people entered. But far fewer managed to leave. And as daylight began disappearing, the atmosphere around us started changing. The streets were becoming more unpredictable, more tense, more dangerous, which raised an uncomfortable question. If things felt intense during the day, please watch the next video here to see what happens in the next country, Malaysia, and please subscribe to this channel.